I'm Dave Veach, and I administer civil rights and equal opportunity compliance for all CDBG-related programs. I'll be talking about these laws and how to adhere to them through HUD initiatives such as fair housing, citizen participation, and Section 3. I want to start here not to overwhelm you, but to show you the number of laws, acts, and executive orders we must adhere to in CDBG. This is why there are so many various compliance requirements that I'm about to demonstrate with this presentation. So to boil it down to its essentials, the minimum requirements for civil rights compliance are equal employment opportunity in hiring, equal access to CDBG contracts and business opportunities through contracts, also Section 504 Handicapped Act requirements and compliance with federal fair housing legislation. In order to ensure equal opportunity, subrecipients must take measures to ensure non-discriminatory treatment and equal access, affirmatively further fair housing, which is a new HUD initiative we will talk about, and provide economic opportunities to low-income residents through Section 3, which we will also discuss later in this presentation. Non-discrimination is easy enough. CDBG subrecipients must administer their programs in a non-discriminatory manner without regard to race, color, national origin, sex, age, religion, or handicap. Another way in which we ensure equal opportunity through HUD programs is an initiative called Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing. This is an executive order issued pursuant to the Fair Housing Act. It requires cities and towns which receive federal money to examine their housing patterns and look for racial bias. The intention is to promote racial integration. We strive toward these equal housing opportunities for all persons living in your jurisdiction by administering laws that prohibit discrimination in housing, promoting public awareness of fair housing laws, and improving the accessibility of housing to persons with disabilities. The duty to affirmatively further fair housing extends to all program participant activities and programs relating to housing and urban development. In order to implement this, your community will conduct an analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, or the AI, and this is required as part of the LCC response. You must take appropriate actions to overcome the effects of any identified impediments in the AI, and keep records reflecting the analysis and actions taken to overcome any identified impediments. The AI is a review of impediments to fair housing choice in the public and private sectors, which involves a comprehensive review of a jurisdiction's laws, regulations, and administrative policies, procedures, and practices, an assessment of how those laws affect the location, availability, and accessibility of housing in that jurisdiction, an assessment of conditions, both public and private, affecting fair housing choice for all protected classes, and an assessment of the availability of affordable, accessible housing in a range of unit sizes. Subrecipients are required to take appropriate actions to correct any identified impediments, including promoting home ownership through housing and credit counseling, removing barriers to affordable housing, conducting and promoting fair housing testing, and conducting and promoting fair housing education and outreach. Suggested activities to implement this initiative would be public information programs through local media such as radio, billboards, newsprint, TV. Examine local zoning ordinances. Also, discuss issues through local government public hearings. Beginning with the 2015 CDBG grants, the following two activities will now be mandatory actions. One is to issue a Fair Housing Month proclamation by the municipality for the month of April. ADECA has the governor issue this proclamation on behalf of the state every year. Also, it is now required to publish and display bilingual fair housing information online in government buildings and billboards or wherever your advertisement takes place. At ADECA's website, you'll find 4 specific tools to assist CDBG grant recipients in this. Analysis of impediments is one, and fair housing, equal opportunity, and civil rights compliance questionnaires are another. These are both due and implemented at the LCC phase. The civil rights compliance checklist will be implemented at the monitoring phase, and there are closeout checklist documents that you will also find on the website. For more information, you can also see the Fair Housing Planning Guide at the website below. Citizen participation is another way in which we ensure equal opportunity through CDBG programs. It's an essential element of the locality's community development process, and it encourages the input and participation of the citizenry. Alabama requires all local government subrecipients to have a written local citizen participation plan in place. And again, you can see ADECA's website for this template. The plan must be followed during the planning and implementation phases of the CDBG project. The goal is to provide all citizens of the community with an adequate opportunity to participate in an advisory role in the planning, implementation, and assessment of the community development activities. The plan places special emphasis on encouraging participation by persons of low and moderate income, residents of blighted neighborhoods, residents of areas where community development funds are utilized. Public participation is facilitated through public hearings in order to obtain views of citizens and to provide the citizens an opportunity to comment on the applicant's community development performance. There are requirements to these public hearings. They must be advertised in a major newspaper of general circulation. They must be held at times and in places accessible to low and moderate income residents. All materials and meetings must be accessible to persons with limited English proficiency upon request. And at least one public hearing shall be held during any CDBG program fiscal year prior to the submission of an application to ADECA. The location of all public hearings shall be accessible to persons with disabilities, and the community shall provide a sign language interpreter whenever the community is notified in advance that hearing impaired persons will be in attendance. Prior to advertising for or conducting a public hearing, all subrecipients must conduct a 4-factor analysis and, if applicable, develop a language access plan for persons with limited English proficiency. If the 4-factor analysis identifies a group of limited English proficient persons, the notices and citizen participation materials must be made accessible to those individuals. This can include providing an interpreter when needed and providing materials in the appropriate language format. Another initiative which strives to ensure equal opportunity in HUD-administered programs is Section 3. This is a provision of the HUD Act of 1968 that is intended to foster local economic development, neighborhood economic improvement, and individual self-sufficiency. Section 3 of the HUD Act is race neutral, and it refers to local and low income. Local is county or metropolitan area, and low income is single persons or families with incomes less than 80% of median income for the area. Section 3 requirements apply to the entire activity, regardless of whether it is fully or partially funded by CDBG, although you only report CDBG dollars. Minimum requirements of Section 3 include publicizing available economic opportunities for CDBG projects. Also, the Section 3 clause must be included on all contracts. Ensure compliance of contracts and subcontractors. Document efforts to comply, and submit the Form 60002 annually and also at closeout. A Section 3 resident is someone who lives in public housing. It is families or single persons that are low or very low income, a participant in HUD Youth Build program, or a homeless person residing within the project area. A Section 3 business is defined as 51% or more owned by Section 3 residents, or 30% or more of permanent full-time employees are Section 3 residents or were Section 3 residents when hired. Or it can be 25% or more of contract dollar value is subcontracted to business concerns meeting the criteria listed above. The goals for Section 3 as set out by HUD are to achieve Section 3 in 30% of new hires, 10% of construction contracts, and 3% of non-construction contracts. And that concludes my Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity presentation. If you have any further questions, my contact information is on the last slide.